Hello and welcome to this episode of Talking to Introverts podcast. Do you know, whenever I'm doing this introduction, it like the name completely goes from my head, which is why there's a really long of Talking to Introverts podcast. With myself, Sami Blackford, and my co-host and co-introvert. Drumroll, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Denise Oliver. Thank you for the drum roll. That's nice.
If I was really savvy with video editing and whatnot, I could maybe even get a drum roll in there, but I don't think it's going to happen. So,
Oh, okay. Oh, got excited then.
so
Okay.
it's the thought that counts, Denise.
If you say so.
So, what are we talking about in this episode? We are going to look at, well, we're in the theme of spring recently, aren't we? We had spring cleaning our bodies. We've had looking at everything that happened at the end of March in the last episode, because everything happened in one weekend. So, continuing our theme around spring, what do you think of when you think of spring? Okay, there's lambs in the field, there's birds singing, there's some bits of sunshine, there's flowers coming up, and spring cleaning, obviously. This always comes to mind because, we've been hibernating all winter and maybe we want to have a tidy up and a clear out of our spaces, which just looking around my office where I'm sat right now, I could do with it, to be honest. Yeah, I'll just stop looking at that. So Denise, what's spring cleaning for you?
I often actually think more of the garden in
Hmm.
spring, especially this year. Winter has been so wet and so
Hmm.
windy. Plants that have never bent. They've been battered by the wind and are growing horizontally rather than vertically. It's like, do I take them out and like reposition them so that they're what would now be on their side, but they look upright? It's like, I don't know what to do with them. And it's also, we often think about autumn and all the leaves and all of that that needs clearing away. But I find that there's been more damage in the winter than I at first recognise. Plus, there's also all the moss that grows on the patio and we've got a big patio that needs cleaning. So jet washing will be starting, hours of jet washing. But a couple of years ago, I slipped when I hadn't cleaned the patio and broke my shoulder. So it will be happening. Um, it's just like, oh, it's going to be happening. And yeah, and then it's all that looking at. I love going to garden centres in the spring. Like, what am I going to grow this year? I don't know yet. But I get very excited about doing things like that. So the husband got the one and only husband, the husband, got vouchers for the garden centre. So we will, I can't remember why he got them, but he's got like a couple of £100. It's like, that's a lot of plants. Oh, so exciting going to a garden centre. So we'll be going to a garden centre very soon, somewhere near us, and spending a lot of money. But then I've learned from past, if you spend a lot of money on plants, get them in straight away.
Hmm.
Don't go and buy them thinking, I'll sort them out sometime. No, if they're going to be bought, I always make sure I've got at least a weekend to actually put them in the ground. And then previous to that, I need to have sorted all the ground out anyway and made sure it's in a suitable condition to take these plants. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. That's sort of where I go because I'm very fortunate and I bless the day she came into this house. I have a cleaner. So, you know, everywhere in the house is kept very clean, very tidy. I'm a very tidy person. I don't like cleaning, which is why I have a cleaner, but I'm a very tidy person.
Hmm.
And once an area looks untidy, I make the time to sort it out. There's always a drawer somewhere, isn't there, that you've just shoved stuff into.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing I go looking for. And I'm like, right, have I cleared that drawer out recently? because it never ceases to amaze me what my husband likes to hoard. Does every house have one? A drawer that's just full of wires that don't work anymore with anything?
Yeah, like we have a drawer of old chargers, so old phone chargers from like, when mobile phones first became a thing and now would not fit anything whatsoever. There's that kind of drawer. There's also a drawer with bits of string in, because like you have a roll of string, but then you cut a bit and you use it for something, but then you don't need it to use it for that thing anymore. But it's quite a good piece of string, so it might be useful for something. So you can't just throw it away. But where'd you put it?
I had an obsession once with elastic bands, and there was a time when the postman walked around the streets and he would have sets, he or she, we have a lady post lady here, she's lovely, Natasha, adore her, she's just so kind. She's always got a dog treat. So she feeds all the dogs as she goes around the area posting letters. But it doesn't happen now because there was big complaints about it. When the postman had his deliveries, he'd have elastic bands around them, and the elastic bands were just discarded in the street.
I know.
I hated it. Why have you done this? You could be putting them in your pocket and reusing them. Why are they on the floor? And I used to go around picking them up because elastic bands are very useful. I've got a jar of them. I look to one side in my office. But I now realise that I don't collect them like I used to because they're not there. And so elastic bands have been used and the jar is now half empty rather than full one. So it's like, yes, I used to collect elastic bands. I'm not obsessive in any way.
I have to say, though, public service announcement for elastic bands, they are very dangerous to animal life.
Absolutely.
Especially like the brownie ones. I know there's a lot of the postmen, I think, use red ones now. Yeah. Who knew we'd be having such a discussion about which elastic bands postmen would be using? But anyway, the brown ones, animals think they're worms and try and eat them. And it's not good for them. So yes,
not good.
Don't drop your elastic bands, people.
No, no, not good at all. I'm trying to think what else I'd be spring cleaning.
Does your cleaner do anything specific at this time of year, or just the same throughout the year?
Unless I ask her. I am very much into in the spring. Over time, shelves get cluttered. And she's very good at, if I say, would you take everything off the dresser and wash everything down and make sure the dresser isn't full of cobwebs, because that happens over the winter. And so she loves doing things like that. And so she will very carefully take all the plates out and all the jugs and everything and wash everything, put it all back. And it's nice to know that all round that dresser has been hoovered and the cobwebs have gone. And it is that thing of, stuff gets shoved into corners and never gets looked at. So that's when, and I know that it's because it's lighter, so I feel more energized with the light, that's when I want to start getting things tidied out, at least once in the year. And it's always the time of year when I'm ready to have the doors and windows open and to bring that cleaner, I don't know if it's cleaner air, but it feels like it is, that fresher air into the house. And we have a wood burning stove, so it gets dusty everywhere. And so it's the time of year when Jeanette's here that I can hear the cushions getting a good beating. They're getting a good bashing as she bashes all the dust out of them because it's come off the fire. So there's lots of things that happen that are more of an automatic response rather than now, because I've done it for so many years, rather than me specifically thinking that's what I need to do. I have got better at things like sorting my clothes out. So rather than just shoving winter things into the back of the wardrobe, I do now look at them, wash them. If I'm going to be putting the thicker stuff away, I use those bags where you can suck the air out so that everything's squashed down. But you never quite know whether you've got all the stains out until you open them up next year, and then the stains turn yellow. And you wonder how you missed it. Like,
I do have it like in a similar sort of thing. Like the wardrobe switchover is such a classic seasonal change activity, isn't it? And I kind of do the same to the house as well. So over winter there's thicker curtains that go up. in spring, those come down, some lighter ones go up, and the same with like bedding and stuff. Um, in winter, there's extra blankets on the bed, and in spring, they come off. And it's quite nice to, while I like autumn and going into winter where we get into that all that coziness, it's also nice coming out the other side at the other end and kind of shaking off the winter clothes and refreshing everything.
Yeah, that space that's created in spring, I think, is what I look forward to. And it is that time when I do, like, I'm looking around my office now, and I'm like, what is in that folder? Do I need that? Why have I got a notice board full of bits of paper? And that is when I suddenly go, oh, look, I don't need that anymore. Why is it up there?
Mm,
And suddenly it's like my eyes can see things in a different way. And I put
mm.
that down to the light.
And I think what you say about the space that spring brings is a very good way of putting it,
Mm,
because it is that, like, you have the doors open, you have the windows open, which creates a more of a feeling of space anyway. We're getting outside more, so we're out in more space. We're not so confined to our homes as we might be in winter with the weather and the darkness and all of that. And I always find in winter, because I'm in my home more, sort of similar to hoarding, but like stuff just piles up. And then, I mean, it's stuff that probably, I need to keep and has homes. It just hasn't been put in its home, which is what I'm looking at as I look around my office. Yeah, in spring, it's just kind of like, okay, let's make space. Let's clear the desk of all the stuff that we don't need on there right now. Let's put things back where they go and all of that. So, yeah, space, spring and space.
For me, it's not just about the external space, it's also about creating it internally as well. So moving away from the heavier foods of winter, so the stews and the heavier soups. And I actually do a freezer clear out. I actually go through everything that's in there and look at, like, I don't eat pasta, but my husband does, and so it's like, if he's going to have that, I need to persuade him to put a lighter sauce on it. It doesn't
Mm,
need to be super thick and stodgy anymore. I don't think. He might think different, but he doesn't get everything he wants. So I do look at what's in there, and I I eat more fish in the spring. Is something I've recognized about myself, because to me it's just a lighter food. And if I'm going to have veggies, I'd rather have them steamed than baked and roasted. So it's just, I've just acknowledged things that I've done naturally over the years. And other people might not have ever recognized that they follow a seasonal pattern.
mm,
And definitely in the spring, I suddenly get an increase in desire for fruit that I don't have in the winter. And so I look at, and actually, it's a better time to be having them anyway. And yet does happen naturally. It's just that,
mm,
oh, I fancy a fruit smoothie. It's like, yeah, let's have a fruit smoothie rather than a heavy, chocolatey smoothie that's got nut butters in, that sort of thing. I don't want them as rich.
mm.
I want to have that lightness to my food as well, heading into the summer.
Put a little note to dear listener, if you want to explore more about that. I think we talked about spring cleaning your body.
Mm.
Wasn't the last episode? Was it the one before?
It was definitely in March.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about that, go have a listen.
Mm.
So we're both business owners. Is there any spring cleaning that goes on in your business, Denise, or
It is the
decluttering?
time that I clean my bookshelves, and I always talk to my books because they don't necessarily always want to be spring cleaned, um, or wait for the spring to be cleaned. That I do move them on during the year, but spring is the time that I do take a good look at everything that's on them and ask them, are they still relevant to me and my business? Some are, some aren't. And I always have a lot more books than I could ever read at any one time. A lot more. And I know many years ago I stopped stockpiling them at the side of the bed because I recognized that that pile was just getting bigger and bigger, and I was never going to read them all. And actually, it became an anxiety. Am I ever going to get around to doing this? So I moved them, and I have accumulated a little pile of books over the winter on my window ledge in my office. And as my windows need a good cleaning, and I have plantation shutters and they're filthy, I can't deny that. They need a good clean. Everything on the window ledge has to go. It's like, no, that's got to be cleared. I need that space back now. I want to be able to open the shutters and open the windows as we go into the summer. So I can't have anything on there. Whereas in the winter, it just piles up. So that's one of the things in the physical domain that I will be doing. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't know where it's all going to go. That has to be done. I know I'll put that off. And it's things like looking at my notice board. Like, what is on there? Everything needs taking off, and then looking at properly and deciding whether it's going back or not. Because I honestly haven't shifted anything since Christmas that's up there. So it's like, I'm sure it needs filing now. One of my positive hates, I hate doing it, is going through the filing cabinet, because that is such a good place to just shove anything.
Yep.
Because it's a 4-drawer one, and it is.
Oh, you can hide all sorts in there.
Oof, there's too much in there. Just too much now. I will go through things like just going back to the body. I'll go through all my supplements, look at what is almost running out. Do I need more, or do I just leave those and buy different ones for the spring? So one of the things, we were talking about what we talked about in March with spring cleaning the body and liver cleanses, is that I bring out all the stuff for the liver at this time of the year. So I have specific supplements for liver cleansing. I have milk thistle. I decrease my vitamin C at this time because I'm more into the fruit. So I'm going to eat more of that. There's something else I was going to say. So I go through stuff like that and just check whether it's relevant to the season. And I always look after my liver, give it full focus in the spring. And I keep asking it what it wants less of and what would be a positive thing. I don't know what the word is for it to have. A positive addition. Maybe that's the word for it.
When I closed my previous business, which closed in the October, interestingly, it's only like looking back on it now, it wasn't until the following spring that I actually started to clear stuff out. And from that 15 years worth of business or whatever it was, God, I had a lot of paperwork that I didn't need anymore. I mean, obviously, there's paperwork that you have to hold on to. You have to hold on to 5 years worth of accounts and all of that kind of stuff. But there was so much stuff that a lot of it, I don't even know why I had it. Thinking about it, there was a lot, if you go to a workshop and you get a handout or paperwork of any sort, that you went to this thing 10 years ago and never once looked at the paperwork ever again. There was all of that kind of stuff. And also it was kind of a reminder of all the workshops and trainings that I had been on. It's like, actually, I know quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to go, to look through the history of that business and the history of who I was during that business, and also very cathartic to get rid of all the stuff that I didn't need anymore. And it was in a way of, because I closed my business, it was a very positive choice, like my own choice. And it was a nice way to kind of say goodbye to that business and make space, again, going back to making space in spring, make space for the new business and what was next.
Do you do anything like a laptop clear out in the spring? Computer clear out?
I tend to do them periodically throughout the year, not in any set, arranged, organized way, but just I'll have times where I'm like, this is getting on my nerves now. And I was going to ask you about that actually, because I have seen your desktop on your computer, which just has got files all over the place, and it just makes me a little bit anxious to see it.
I'm very good actually. I mean, yes, I keep a lot of stuff on there, but I'm also aware that it does get cluttered. And
Mm.
I'm just lazy. I just like I've gone through a load of stuff and I just leave it there. And it's just laziness that I haven't tied it away. It's a bit like I have a really nice Lloyd Loom chair in the bedroom, and it becomes an extension of the wardrobe to the point that it's called chair robe. I've just got piles of clothes on it. And then I get to a point where the tidy person that lives inside me goes, "You need to sort that now." And that's
I've
what
got,
with my
yeah,
desktop. And that's why I think this energy of the spring, I almost get a sense that my laptop's going, please sort me out. Please sort me out. Come on, please sort me out. I do have an app on my laptop. It's called Clean My Mac. That is brilliant. It goes through everything and it looks for all the messy stuff that's hiding in there. I have no idea what it's all about. And it goes through and it frees up gigabytes of memory for me. But it will also flag up things like apps I haven't used that are on my laptop and ask me if some of them you need to keep. You can't get rid of everything. And so I go through that,
mm,
but it takes time. And sometimes I just don't want to do that. I'd rather go and sit and do my embroidery. So I just shut my laptop down and that's it. It's just left to sort itself out. I'd rather go and sew or
yeah.
plant or whatever. So I'm sorry. I know my laptop annoys you, or the desktop of my laptop annoys you. And I even have like I put folders on there that in alphabetical order. I don't even bother putting stuff in the folder anymore. I just leave it all there. Well, I'm using that at the minute, and I just need to know it's there. Otherwise, I'll forget to do stuff. There's that
Yeah.
aspect of it as well.
I have I have the same sort of chair in my bedroom
Do you?
where,
Your chair.
yeah, clothes just get left on there. And then every now and again, I'm like, this is just annoying me now. There's too many clothes on here. Let's just sort it out.
Yeah.
But like your desktop, I've just realized that I use the downloads folder of my computer in the same way. Just everything is in there.
Yeah.
Even if it's not something that I've downloaded, if I create something and don't know where to put it right now, it'll go in that folder. But I just can't see it when I
Yes,
open my laptop.
exactly.
It's just a folder.
I hate my downloads folder. There's just so much in there. I hate
And
it.
then every now and again, and it does need doing actually thinking about it. Every now and again, I'll go through and it's like, okay, all of those need to go in that folder, and all of those need to go over there, and just sort it out a bit so that everything that's my business related is in the same place, and everything that's our business related is in the same place. It's not just all jumbled in this downloads folder. So
No,
yeah, that does need doing.
I have to say, it is one of the, I don't know if this is an introvert thing, but it is one of those things that when I get my head around it, I really get into it. Where it doesn't matter what I'm cleaning, I can find it very therapeutic, very, I get very methodical about it.
Mm.
So if I'm cleaning out a drawer, I have a system of doing it. So I'll take everything out, clean the drawer, and then I'll assess what's going to go back in. And I get very ruthless and I just chuck away what I know I haven't used. And then you can bet your bottom dollar half an hour later, my husband will be like, have you seen such and such? Oh, God, I just put it in the bin. No, it's not coming out of the bin. I asked him to I needed space in a drawer because he bought this air fryer at Christmas, and I bought some tools like silicon ended tongs and stuff like that. Nowhere to put them. Like, I don't know where this is going. And I looked in a drawer, and I looked at all the stuff that was in this drawer, and they're like, we have a NutriBullet, but these containers weren't for the NutriBullet. It's like, what was this from? So whichever thing we'd had before a NutriBullet, we didn't have the power motor, but we had all the containers. And then I'd had one of the first ones of those little blenders was a TriBest, and I still had stuff for the TriBest. But the motor went years ago. I'm like, why is it still here? And I just took it all out. And I'm like, none of this ever gets used anymore. Why is it still here? My husband's like, don't worry, I'll get rid of all that. He hasn't got rid of it. It's in the garage because they're containers that might be useful one day.
Yep. My dad has a similar stash in his shed.
For
I
what
was going to say, when you clear your drawer out, do you literally just throw it away, or does it go somewhere in like a maybe pile where you revisit it in 3 months and do we really need this or do we really not need this?
I'm very well, as I say, if my husband hadn't been around when I was clearing that drawer out, it would have gone. I would have recycled it all. But no, it's in a box in the garage. Just in case. Just in case of what? Can't eat it. What are we going to do with it? Make some sort of weird work of art out of it. I'm not that creative. I mean, I have to say, it's the time of year when I notice that my windows are dirty because of the light. So that does happen in the spring. Windows do get cleaned. Bless them once a year. That's it. We have got a window cleaner thing. I don't know what it's called, but it's got a little electric motor because we've got quite a lot of windows in this house and big patio doors at the back. And so it is quite useful. So they get done after the jet washing happens because, of course, jet washing sprays muck everywhere. Can't not do it. I haven't worked out how not to do that. So yeah, that comes out as well. Get very busy cleaning, but then I don't want to spend my life cleaning.
No.
I do just enough clearing of clutter. So what about your business now? Is there anything in your business that you can see as we're talking that you'll look at and clear?
Well, I was wondering about that, and I kind of get the sense that this business isn't really old enough to have accumulated too much junk yet.
Yay!
Give it time and it will. Like I say, there's the downloads folder that needs sorting, but kind of all the client files and all of that kind of stuff still need to hold on to. All the, accounting stuff I'll still need to hold on to. There's not too much that needs sorting with that yet. I have to say, though, there is still a lot of previous business stuff around that hasn't been sorted yet, even like 18 months later.
I'm actually very good at sorting other people's stuff out because I'm not emotionally attached to any of it. So if you ought to invite me around, I'd be very ruthless. But you can't be like that with mine. That's not possible. One of the things I am going to do is look at my social media and look at who I've chosen to follow on Instagram and be like, am I really following them? Is there any benefit to this? And if there isn't, and it's just clogs up my feed, I'm just going to unfollow. It's like, what's the point? And the same with my Facebook from previous modalities that I've been with. People have liked and followed my pages and I've liked and followed them back. But we're not friends. We have nothing in common because I've moved on since then. So it's I think it's time for a bit of a declutter in that sort of area. I think that would be a good thing to do.
That's an interesting point that you make about social media. It's there's this whole thing of, follow for a follow, and if somebody follows you, you might feel that you need to follow them back, or if you've met somebody at networking and you want to support them and you follow them. And that's all great, but it's looking at the wrong metrics, really, because on social media, and it's the way social media is designed, we are trained to look at how many followers you've got, how many likes, comments, whatever you get on your posts. And really, that's not, as a business, that's not really what counts. What counts is how many people are coming from your social media to your website and paying you money, just to put it bluntly. So if you're following people who you're not engaging with and you have no interest really in what they're doing, where it might seem like, I really want to support this person, but I'm not their ideal customer or client, it's actually more of a support to not follow them, because if you're following them, you're kind of skewing their statistics because you're of no use to them. If you're not going to pay them money, you're of no use to them.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a very blunt way of putting it, but
Yeah, no, exactly. And like you mentioned a website there. Do you remember the glitch in March in Facebook where it just disappeared?
Yeah,
Nobody
I
could
wasn't
find
aware of it
anything.
because I don't use
I
social
mean,
media that often, but
I
I
I
heard about
missed,
it.
I blinked and missed it.
Yeah,
But I know other people didn't, and it came into focus for me that social media could just go.
yeah,
Just somebody could just switch it off, and that's it. It's gone. And everywhere where you think you've got people following you, buying from you, and all of that, they're gone as well. So your website is so important to have that because that's yours.
mm,
And yeah, keep that up and maintain it, and etc. etc. We
yeah. Your website and your newsletter list are the only two things that you, in inverted commas, own. The only two platforms that you own. Um, because social media, all know the algorithm is a ruthless god to worship. um and Mark Zuckerberg can wake up one morning and decide that he's just going to put this tweak in that completely destroys your reach, and all of that kind of stuff, that you have no control over who actually sees your post. But on your website and your newsletter list, you have much more control over it.
I mean, obviously, if there's no electricity, it's all gone.
Well,
So,
yeah.
let's
Oh,
just keep it
yeah.
in
I mean, like,
perspective.
there's you still have to rely on the people who host your website. The platforms you keep your newsletter list on, all of that kind of stuff. So you're still beholden to big companies, but less so from a like the algorithm point of view with your website and your newsletter list than with social media. And something I have noticed from a client point of view, a lot of people this time of year are looking at their websites, their like the visuals of their business, and all of that kind of stuff, and choosing to create to do like a refresh. And only as I say that now, realize that maybe that is a spring thing. We've come out of winter and want to get the business back out there. And is the business fully what it needs to be right now
I think it
and
for me, it's like,
represented in the way?
yeah, is it as alive as it could be?
Mm,
Has it the business got space? Has the website got the space it needs? Because they
mm,
get cluttered up with stuff as well. It's too easy for my, this is just me personally talking, to just like put too much on the website and then it gets overwhelming and too, people can't be bothered to go through it to look for the stuff they need. So
mm.
yeah, having a good declutter on something like that as well, I think is worth doing. And actually speaking to someone like yourself, whose your business is about their business
Mm.
and about working out what was going to work for their website and their branding. So on that note, give yourself a plug.
Yes, I am a brand designer and strategist for introverted women in business who don't want to be on social media every minute of every day. We can find ways to get your business known with the people that you want it to be known by in ways that don't involve lots of TikTok dancing and going live on Instagram and whatnot. So you can find out more on my website, sammyrainbow.co.uk. And all links for myself and Denise, who I will invite to plug her business in a moment, will be in the video description below. So, Denise, I can't leave you hanging with nobody knowing what you do. Your business that you are going to be giving a bit of a spring clean to. What is that business?
So my business is called Diva Empowerment, DEVA. So that's a Roman word for Chester. And I'm all about women's empowerment. And again, I help introverted women. But I really niche it even more and talk about midlife women who are struggling with their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, and particularly after any sort of loss, a death loss or a non-death loss. And I help you move forward to harness meaning and purpose in your life so that you can live an empowered, diva empowerment life, an optimal life. I think it's very important. I think women often downplay all the different losses in their life until they have a massive trauma trigger. So rather than wait for the massive one to choose to do something, and you can
Mm,
still do nothing, or you can choose to see a coach like myself who can help and support you, because I've been there. I've had a lot
mm,
of losses in my life, both of people, my health, businesses, all sorts of things. And if you're not careful, your anxiety, your frustrations, your worries, your stress just keeps on growing and growing, and you wonder why you feel ill, disjointed, not with it, wondering what's going on in your head, all of that sort of thing. And I can help with all of that.
as women, we are kind like loss is kind of programmed into us, isn't it? I mean, you only have to think, every month with our period, that's a loss in a way, isn't it? And from childhood through puberty into womanhood, and we lose that innocence of childhood, and then going out, the other side of that with the menopause, or everything that we lose with that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we automatically know how to deal with every loss in our lives.
No, and I think it's the more that there's neuroscience and psychologists working with neuroscientists and performing testing on the brain using MRI scanners. So they set up this functional testing whereby they can map what happens in the brain. It's interesting how much is now more understood about what triggers us. And they call
Mm-hmm.
it trauma triggers. And for one person, it's insignificant, but for another person, it's massive. And you don't have to formally be diagnosed with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, for this to be a thing. Trauma triggers can be incredibly complex, but with all the stuff I've done over the years and what I know now, is you can talk to your brain in a way that calms all that down. And it's so simple. And I'm really into everything being as simple as possible. I
Mm,
really am. So empowerment is from within, and we go seeking it outside of us. But as introverts, that doesn't always work for us. And actually, talking to someone like myself, I'm not going to keep you in an appointment for ages while we really dig into stuff. No, we start off gently, quietly, and only do enough. But by doing enough, it can actually knock out an awful lot of other triggers as well. So, yeah, trauma triggers, big thing. And I never know when something's going to come up for me until it does.
mm,
And now have the tools and I can work on it. Yeah, I talk about pain becoming our power and wounds becoming our wisdom, and stress becomes our resilience. So the way I'm working is it's bringing one down and raising the other so that you can live your best life, your optimal life. For me, it's very important that that is a thing,
mm,
because introverts tend to hide stuff away. They don't want to talk about things because that's not what we do, and we don't seek help enough. My personal belief, and that's based on my experience of myself. And then talking to other introverts when we do our enrichment networking, it's like, oh, I can see it, I can hear it. It just comes out of them, and it's like an introvert has to feel safe to be
yeah.
able to disclose. And if they don't feel safe, they just hold on to it and then wonder why their body's not working the way they'd like it to, and their brains aren't, and they have this constant background anxiety over what appears to be nothing. And it's because your body's holding on to it.
Mm.
So that,
Sometimes it can really be that, like the straw that broke the camel's back. It might be something really like really seemingly tiny and insignificant that actually damages the dam and opens the floodgates, and whatever other metaphor I can throw into this sentence. But yeah, like you say, because there's all that other stuff beforehand,
yeah,
and it's literally that is just the one that's,
yeah. And you might not
as you
even
say,
know
triggered
it's
it.
there. That's the
Mm,
thing. But what with the modality I use, you don't actually need to be able to know every single detail. There's ways of working where we don't even have to speak, and that can knock these trauma triggers out.
mm,
Just what's the word I'm looking for? Like diffuse them. in such a way that suddenly you're not living suboptimally. We're told we should be happy and the happiness is within, and it is. But unfortunately, we're programmed to see the negativity way more than the positivity. And we can train ourselves to be way more positive, happier with our lot in life, and learn from our experiences, and then look to the future in a way that really enhances our lifestyle. And I think spring is a good time to consider doing that. Whilst you're looking for that space in your external world, then find it and choose to do something with the internal as well. I don't have a choice. My body shows me what it wants me to do. It gives me twinges and collywobbles and little anxiety show up. Like, what is this and where is it coming from? And it's old stuff, really old stuff. If you went to see something like a shaman, they would tune into your ancestral energy and clear your ancestral energy in order to clear the pathways that keep showing up lifetime after lifetime. And I think that's really fascinating, and we can do that with the modality I use as well. So you don't think you're being crazy in any way by going, I feel like I've always had this. I feel like I've always had this. I feel like my wiring's really wonky. My brain doesn't work like other people's brains. No, actually it does. It really does. It's just that it's on overdrive in certain areas. And it's just like, oh, okay, brains are fascinate me. Brains are fascinating. And I think now at the age I'm at, if I could go back to my 20s, I would look at psychology and neuroscience now. Because that is what absolutely fascinates me. But I'm not going to retrain in that now. I'll just piggyback on all the wonderful work that the boys and girls out there are doing for the benefit of all of us. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Yeah, so if you want to do the transformational work, you often need someone sitting outside of you, viewing you and how your split second react, what they are, and to go, what was that? What happened then? And it might not be anything that you can put a name to, a face to, anything like that, but we can still work with that glitch that you felt in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah, ditch the glitches. That's a new one. I've just come up with that.
So we've explored all sorts of avenues within spring decluttering and spring cleaning and spring tidying. A few tangents, as ever. When is there not a tangent involved in a Talking to Introverts podcast episode? So Denise, the question, are we done?
I'm going to say yes to that. I believe for this episode, we will be back with more.
Yes. Always have to caveat it, don't we? For now.
Yeah,
for this episode. So thank you for listening and joining us for our conversation in Talking to Introverts. As ever, you're invited to join the conversation by leaving a comment below. We always like to hear your thoughts, your opinions on what we've been talking about, because obviously Denise and I are only talking for our own point of view. And there are many others in the world which we would love to hear about. So
and
we
also,
will...
as an introvert, if you're listening and you know that someone else is an introvert, perhaps you'd share this with them. So just in case there's anything we're saying that resonates with them, might work. We're done.
Yes.
We are done.
We are done. So we will see you. Well, we won't actually physically see you, but we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.